In this episode, Rob Keeping, MD of Bread Holdings, shares his unique journey from a sports-focused youth to serving his country and then evolving a new career in the culinary world. He discusses his transition from the army to hospitality, his passion for food, and the evolution of Gail's, a craft bakery that emphasises local community and sustainability. Rob also highlights the importance of provenance in food sourcing and the innovative B2B operations of the bread factory, showcasing how the group adapts to the changing landscape of the food industry. He then goes on to explain the importance of leadership, team dynamics and personal development, and reflects how his career in the military has shaped his leadership style, emphasising the value of collective responsibility and continuous learning. As he prepares to transition to a new senior role at Bells of Lazonby, Rob shares insights on the significance of authentic relationships and the need for adaptability in leadership roles. I hope you enjoy. Hi Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Steve, thank you for having me.
So you are currently MD at Bread Holdings. So as we always start these podcasts, it's wonderful to get some background and obviously having a bit of insight to your background. This is going to be an interesting answer to the question. In fact, it might be the whole episode, just how you got there. But it'd be really good to give our listeners a sort of brief history of your career and then how you've ended up at this role. And then we'll also then talk about the future and what that holds too later on.
Fantastic, yes. So I suppose a little bit about myself and a background on myself. I kind of grew up in Worcestershire and I was definitely more, I suppose, into sport than academics when I was a bit younger.
Is there any other way?
Is there any other way when you're young? I was heavily into most sports, but particularly golf, where I was playing down at scratch level at kind of 15 years old. I captained my county of Worcestershire. And trained and practiced and coached through the PGA at the Belfry, and at one point thought that was the pathway I was actually going to go, that I was going to potentially do it as a living, and give it a go as a living. And at kind of about the same time, my parents separated and different things happened personally, and I was finding myself at the age of 17 and 18, like most 17, 18-year-olds, kind of unsure what to do next. I had obviously the golf option. I also, had further education, university and so forth. And then one day I walked past the Army Careers Office in my local town, and I thought, you know what, I'll pop in and have a little look what's inside. I think within 10 minutes I was sat down doing some type of entry exam, and then 2 months later from there I had at the time quite student-y hair, and quite student-y outlook. 2 months later I was in basic training with a shaved head.
I'm getting impressions of Officer and Gentleman here, where he goes.
Very much so.
You are now Richard Gere of the podcast world. There you go.
It was one of those that my parents and my family were all a little bit shocked, a little bit like, okay, what's going on here? So
was that at 18? Sorry, Rob, that you went in there?
It's 18, yeah.
So straight from school.
Straight from school, straight from college. And it was at the same point where the PGA scholarship, you could go at 18 and essentially go down that path. University obviously at 18. I considered apprenticeships, things like that. I grew up around my father, who owned his own business, in an essence of old school principles: hard work, graft, building strong relationships, and having that type of loyal service. And he became very successful with the support of my mother, and so there was an element of potentially go down an apprenticeship scheme or something like that. But I ended up instead in the army, learning how to strip a rifle and all the good stuff that comes along with it. And I essentially served 9 years, in Europe, Northern Ireland, around the world. doing multiple things from, joining the Royal Military Police to becoming close protection trained at the end, and working with, highly pressurised investigations and various things.
So was that through the military police? Were they like internal investigations? I read that about being a case officer and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, at that time it was, and at that time I was based out of Germany, so I lived out in Germany for quite a few years. I met my now best friend, who's the best man at my wedding, and who is still in. He's become from private to captain, so he continued his journey.
Wow.
And we often share our leadership journey together, and bat ideas off from each other, and various things like that. We're very close, but for me, I got to about the 9-year point, and I realised that I was still at the age where I could leave and have a second career. Although at the time I didn't know what that second career was going to be, but I knew that I was young enough, and I had some kind of experience behind me to kind of push on. So from there, I left the military, and like most people, where do you go when you want to kind of start making a mark in something or learn something? So I moved to London with pretty entrepreneurial spirit, kind of not really knowing what I was going to go.
So it was in your blood from your father, was it?
I think my father's kind of hard work and putting himself in that position, taking the risk, kind of probably paid off on myself at some point, because I kind of felt if I got to London, I would find my way, and essentially that's what's happened. From there I started, which we'll go into, but I found my way into working for a company called Exeter Street Bakery, which was essentially a small craft, kind of retail offering cafes in places like Chelsea and Kensington and places like that. And it had a food service wholesale as well, which served Waitrose, Michelin star chefs, top hotels, things like that. And they wanted a GM and a head of ops to go in and essentially run the business day to day. And they took a gamble on me. I went in, learned very quickly the hard way of certain things, and suddenly had a world of P&Ls and budgets to attend to, which obviously in the military aren't the focal point. And so I had to learn quite quickly and on the job. But again, I think a lot of the experience from the military, that agility, that kind of attention to detail, the growth mindset around kind of, being in a situation and understanding that the ownership of it and the accountability of it really paid off, and the business became a success, and it grew and became solid profitability quite quickly. And it was an exciting time being in London, working around top chefs, and all of a sudden I realised without really knowing it that I was actually quite a foodie. I
was about to ask, was it because a lot of the podcasts are sometimes not quite career advice, but those who seemed happiest have followed a passion, and they've got a natural, and obviously I can see the rest of your CV here that you're not sharing yet, that you've obviously found a niche you enjoy. But did you have a passion for that side before you joined, or was it?
It's a good question. I think it was probably there. I enjoyed travelling, and I always found myself when I was travelling kind of honed in on the food and the culture of that place, and
okay.
culture and a lot of economics, funnel around food and funnel around the central hub of hospitality. So I kind of, I suppose, subconsciously enjoyed it. But then working around it and seeing chefs in their creative environment, working with them on, product development and innovation, working on structural and the operational strategy for these businesses was really exciting. And it absolutely became much more part of why I do it, and fundamentally going back to the why, you have to be passionate about what you do, and sometimes those passions develop and they grow over time, but ultimately, yes, I I gained a lot of passion for the hospitality and eventually the bakery world. So yeah, from Exeter Street, I essentially got headhunted and approached by Caprice Holdings, which obviously is well known for its brands like the Ivy, Scott, Annabelle's, and more recently Sexy Fish, and things like that. But it also has a brand, Balthazar, which it co-owned with Keith McNally, the restaurateur from New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved across to manage the Balthazar brand initially, and got to work in New York and see the bakery and the restaurant over in New York.
So that was your way in, still in that sort of bread sector, bakery sector.
Exactly, within the bakery sector. Yeah, it was my kind of route into that group at Caprice. And after seeing the business out in New York and Manhattan, and seeing the passion that Keith McNally and his team brought to the business, replicating it and growing it in London became a nice transparent situation where it was quite mirrored. And we served, again, top restaurants, top chefs, retail, and also obviously Caprice Holdings. And then I helped and worked across some of the operational aspects within the group, and got to obviously work and meet Richard Caring, who was doing some big things within the restaurant industry, especially with the bold Ivy expansion. Which
I was going to say, that's when the Ivy expansion really kicked off, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it was an operational, I suppose, risk at the time, because the Ivy had always been known as an institution. So then branching it out and into a bistro offering was a bold move, and I think one that's paid off, because it's extremely successful, and now there's one in most towns and cities across the country. And
it's very interesting how they've managed to keep it not like a chain, although it is a chain, if that makes sense. Because I live in Harrogate, we've got a very successful one there. The one in Leeds is always busy, and like you say, I mean, that must be open 7-8 years, is it? I bet now.
It's been a
and
while,
the way fashion
absolutely
goes, doesn't it? You expect them to be the next one that comes along, but they've kind of institutionalized.
That's true, and I think that's also fundamental, is when a chain continues to grow and expand, it can still have a unique, individualistic kind of offering to a town or a place. The building or the setup can be different. Fundamentally, the service and the product that you're offering has continuity across the group.
Yeah, and quality, obviously, as well.
And quality, absolutely. But the sites themselves and so forth can build that creativity, and we've seen that with the Ivy especially. And then from kind of at that point, I suppose, I'd already met my now wife in London. A very kind of serendipitous kind of situation where we kept seeing each other on the train to work in the morning.
Oh, was it? Eyes across a busy platform and all that, yeah?
Exactly, absolutely. And eventually romantic. One day a seat came available, and I offered it to her, and we got talking and had lunch. And,
you old dog raw iron there, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, exactly. And then we obviously are now married, and we have a 2-year-old daughter that I'm extremely happy. But at that point, when I was at Caprice and my partner was at Sky, we were trying to understand if London was for us long term, if it was where we were going to set down roots, or her family were in Yorkshire, mine was based out all over. And we opted to move to the north, into Manchester and Greater Manchester. And my partner moved over to the BBC, and I obviously knew Bread Holdings, which is where I am now, through Gail's. They were doing very well in London. I had one at the end of my street that I often would go to.
I mean, for those, obviously we have listeners from all over the UK, but for those who maybe Gail's hasn't quite infiltrated, do you want to explain a bit about Gail's first, then we'll go on to the other areas of the business? But
absolutely, yeah. So Gail's is essentially a craft bakery cafe, and they offer local communities great coffee, great breads, cakes, sandwiches, and offerings throughout the day. It's started in Hampstead in London, its first store, where Tom, the owner, opened, and he worked behind the till on a Saturday morning, and now obviously is still running and still part of the business, we now have over 170 Gales nationwide. They were predominantly in London, but we've now ventured out to Bath, Bristol, Birmingham, Manchester, Cambridge, Brighton, and various other locations. And it's an extremely successful business, but also one that fundamentally still works off the principles of why it was set up, which is to get great product and product that's better for you to more people. And we fundamentally do that still with all of our products craft. It's at scale, yes, but still fundamentally we're making bread the same way we did 30 years ago. Our natural starters for the sourdough are 30 years old. We bring in different beans for our coffee and blend them ourselves, and we do all these things to have that personal and craft touch to what we do, combined with the care and the service that we have for our communities. We believe that expanding the brand best serves the public, and we're getting good product to more people, which has been the aim from day one.
I think it's interesting talking to people across our group, when I said I'd got you on and they were like Gail's, and they spoke about it about as if it was nearly part of their family. There was this fanatical following of it. But it's interesting, isn't it, in terms of what I do for a day job in terms of brand and proposition, talking both about the Ivory and about Gail's, is that they're so wonderfully focused and remember strongly what made them famous and continue to deliver that continuity and consistency that all consumers want. Think about what a brand is. It was a mark on the cattle that said it's from good stock. And this is what the brand, the way it's grown now, isn't it? And like you say, if you stick to what you're wonderful at, well, people won't go anywhere. Why would they? Because they like it.
Absolutely,
and it can evolve, can't it? Of course.
Yeah, exactly. It can evolve, and innovation is a big part of what we do. But at the same time, fundamentally, having that consistency in quality and service and offering is really key, and it's something we put a lot of effort into. We have incredible internal development and learning processes, and ultimately everybody that works for the brand and the business is passionate. They want to make a difference, and that's what we've tried from day one. That's Tom has always said from day one that the idea of getting better product for you out to more people is the key, and the business started at a point where we talk about artisan or craft and sourdough, things like this now, but actually 30 years ago it wasn't it wasn't
alien to a lot of people, wasn't it?
It was alien to a lot of people. It wasn't on the consciousness of the public as it is today, and so understanding that that's something that the public will want in the future. They'll want to know where their product comes from, the raw materials come from, the sourcing of them. They'll want to know how you've developed it into a product with care, that you used craft process, or you've put personal touch into what you're doing. And one store, 170, 300 stores, we're always going to maintain that, and it's an incredible business to be part of and see grow over those years that I've been there, and obviously before my time, and it's doing some great things.
I think there's a big change going on in I think in the food world generally, about, like you talked about there, about provenance, but about people maybe coming away from that huge industrialized model of the supermarket. Let's say that I had a guest on last week from a wonderful business called Ubi, which you don't really come across. So it's 4 O's BY, Ubi, and it stands for out of our own backyard. Okay. And what they've basically done, they're a technology business, but they built a platform to allow a local producer and grower to sell directly to the consumer, and it started doing veg boxes, but it's have a look at it, it's fascinating. But a lot of what they were saying was that people are now wanting to know where this stuff's from, and they want to support locally and actually get better products rather than carrots that have come in from, I don't know, Argentina, for a terrible example. I'll probably get pillared for saying now. But this idea of this continuing mass-produced food is not what we want, and you're proving that by the way that Gail's is working, and to say, no, this is something we source, we understand, it's sustainable, it's ethical, from the coffee right the way through. And actually, I think that's quite exciting, of where people are starting to hunker in onto local delivery of great product.
Exactly that, and provenance is extremely key. You want to, if you're going to put passion into what you're creating, and you want that passion throughout the supply chain, from the very resource of raw materials all the way through to creating the product for the consumer or the public, and that's what we do. And ultimately, we bring that passion into the stores. You walk past a Gail's, into a Gail's, the first thing you see often in the big window is all of the bread lined up and all of the product is center stage, and because that represents what we do in terms of our values and our passion, more so than anything else. And then you also get that through our people when you walk in and you're served by somebody that is more than eager to tell you about the provenance of the bread, or the baker that made it last night, and so on and so on. And it's an extremely interesting business to be part of. It's exciting. It also gives you great scope for innovation. You're in control of the product, so you get to innovate, and you get to trial some incredible product out into the public. And we've always said, as a business, it's always been a tough question, because once you're 1, 2, 3 stores, it's fine. Once you're 10, 20, 100 plus stores is always a slightly different narrative. But the way we've always looked at it is, regardless of how many stores we have, it's that amount of communities that we're serving. So if we have 170 stores, it's 170 communities that we could touch, and we can be part of and contribute to. And it's something that we're very keen on, and we partner locally, if that is with schools and educational processes, or with charities or so forth, always locally to that store or to that area. And it's very important to us as we expand, we educationally expand what we're doing and why we're doing it, but also connecting with people, and connecting with the purpose of what makes a great loaf of bread and coffee, but at the same time giving that to the people, and working with them locally and supporting them. And we saw that through COVID, when we were open, and people really saw it as their place to go during that time. It was their escape for an hour, and that's no different. A coffee shop has been a staple to most communities for generations, and it's extremely important that we continue that tradition.
I think it is. It's that idea that you create a reason for people to meet, and loneliness is a huge problem in the UK at the moment, and we're working with a couple of charities and a couple of organisations that are trying to sort that. And one of again, a former guest, she is the chief exec of a charity in London called City Harvest London, which I don't know whether you guys have come across. And they are like a B2B business, so they basically bring in lots of product from lots of providers, Amazon Fresh right the way through to McVitie's, who've made a dodgy biscuit they don't want to sell, and they then distribute that to the charity partners who deliver it on the ground. And it's interesting, their whole ethos is that the only partners they work with are somebody that serves food, but it can't just be they give food away. It's got to be that acts as a focal point for somebody to come in and start a conversation to try and improve, hopefully, their life, be it through mental health issues, addiction issues, and it acts as a catalyst to bring people in to help. And I just thought, what a wonderful journey that is. Get rid of food waste, which is a major problem. I'm sure you guys have to deal with it as well. Absolutely. But also then the idea of the other end of your business, which is a place for people to meet and talk. And if you've got staff and team that are passionate, they will draw out conversations, they will get people talking.
Yep,
and we've all got to do it, haven't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we work with partners such as like FareShare, for example, that do some
Yeah.
incredible things around the country, where if we have surplus bread or product, they come and get pick that up daily and take it to the people in need, and it's really important to us that we have those connections locally, but also contribute more heavily as well, and yeah, it's something that we're extremely passionate on.
Brilliant. And so Gales is obviously the very well-known exterior brand of the business, but there's another big chunk of it, equally as big, isn't it, in terms of the bread factory, which is more of the B2B offer. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. So the bread factory is obviously part of Bread Holdings, as well as brands such as Burtonay and Flour Station. But bread factory is the B2B kind of business model. It's supplies commercial food service customers, retail, and so forth. It also makes obviously a lot of product for Gales as well. It's where a lot of the baking happens. So it's we have bakeries in London, in Milton Keynes, in Manchester, in Bath, and obviously
it's like that hub and spoke business then of how you provide fresh produce to your network.
Absolutely, yes, exactly that. And and the bread factory equally has grown in reputation, but also in product and reach over the years. It was set up and was around from the very early days of Gales as well. And it works with Michelin star chefs, hotels, independents, all the way through the hospitality arena, if you like. We've developed product for Major League Football clubs, for the players that are on certain carb diets and this and that, and we've worked with some really interesting businesses, And again, this is a part of the business that's growing. It's fundamental to the position of Bread Holdings, and we're developing and innovating constantly. We're heavily into regenerative farming at the moment, and working with ancient grain. We have incredible people around the business. We have our kind of head baker for the group, Anna Morale, who's extremely passionate and knowledgeable. Brings that to the table in terms of the learning out to the whole business. So when we talk about our care values as a business, it fundamentally comes from the product first and through to the teams, and why we do what we do. Coming back to the why, understanding that we're sourcing this ingredient to make the best product possible, and we're putting that craft into it. So the bread factory's grown extremely well. My job when I joined Bread Holdings was essentially to take the keys for the North and do something with the business and grow it. At the time, it was a very small part of the business, and it was an area that we were just venturing into. And over the years, we partnered with, like I mentioned, everyone from Michelin star customers to major football clubs to huge retail and hospitality leaders. And we grew the business organically through service levels, through consistency, through quality. And that business grew to the point where we also were aligning Gales growth, and we realised that Gales could do really well in other areas than London. So we expanded it into the north, into Manchester, where it's continuing to open stores and cafes, and it's doing extremely well. It's now ventured into Birmingham, Bristol, Bath, and further afield as well. And the business model is essentially that we have these hubs of production sites in cities that can then reach the Gale stores with fresh product, low mileage, and sort of footfall and so forth. So it's extremely exciting. It's been a like most businesses within hospitality, but especially the bakery world, it keeps you on your toes. You have a great mixture of reactive and proactive strategy involved. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing in terms of how you have to manage the business. We've seen extreme headwinds recently, as we know, around the economy and raw material supply chain and so forth. Getting creative is part of what we do, and it's a business that I love, and I've learnt to to lead within, and I've been extremely lucky to be part of the business, and I've had a great 8 years with them, which is flown by.
So you've got Tom, you mentioned earlier, as the founder and CEO, and then did you say are there 2 MDs?
So the business has grown quite substantially, obviously, over the years. So Tom Molnar, who's the owner and CEO of the business, still is heavily involved in the day-to-day. There are a number of MDs now within the business, from myself to locational-wise. So there's an MD in London, there's an MD for Gail's now, and the business is continuing to expand its leadership team at board level, which I think will only benefit the business long term. I think having a diverse team of leaders is exactly what brings a unique offering to a business. Having diverse opinion and strategy insight is extremely beneficial. So it's a business that's moving forwards. It's very entrepreneurial in its own sense, and through that,
which is interesting when it's got to that scale, isn't it? But I suppose it's
exactly, and which is to its benefit, I think, and why it's got to where it is. But without a doubt, it's also now moving into a part of bringing a little bit more structure and a little bit more fundamentals to what we do around strategy and so forth, and that's also paying positive impact. So it's an extremely exciting business to be part of. It's doing some great things. It's growing well. It's got some strong investment behind it, and I can see it doing great things in the future as well.
And so how has that over the last, obviously it's been a fascinating career in terms of the forces and the extra street stuff, and then so how's your kind of leadership style developed whilst you've been at Bread Holdings? Because it sounds like it's quite an environment to be in. You've got I suppose you've had to wear consumer-facing hats and trade hats, and now I know it's evolved again. But how have you found your own personal development as a leader within that environment?
I think, fundamentally as a leader, it's all about your people first, and so I think the most cherished part of this growth that you get to go through is that you get to develop and grow a team as well, and of people, and working with like-minded people is been a privilege. You get to learn a lot. You get to also distill and help develop others, and I think for myself, I'm a constant learner. So through these years, I've continued to learn and develop my own skill set. That can be external and internal. External wise, I've studied at Harvard and Oxford in terms of executive leadership. And I've managed to put a lot of those practices in place. I've taken a lot of leadership from the military, obviously. You come out of the army and the military with incredible fundamental leadership skills, if that is attention to detail, having agility, risk calculation, and so forth, and I've put a lot of those practices into my strategies, but ultimately my leadership journey is evolving constantly. I'm extremely passionate about developing people and relationships, and it's been incredible, and I've been extremely lucky. I feel like it's still continuing. I've been lucky to have some great success and some growth, and consistency in what I put out as a result in terms of my leadership. But also, you have to be conscious, and you have to look at why you do something. You have to go home at night and be happy with the impact you've had on people and the business itself, which is something that I always try and do. I think if you've got to ask all of my team what they would say about me, I would hope, and I'm pretty confident that they would say that I lead by example, and I have developed them as much as myself.
I don't think you stick around in an organisation like that as long as you have, if you're not. I mean, it's interesting because obviously we'd spoken earlier, and we've had 3 or 4 of our guests over the last episodes that have come from an ex-military background, and did the first part of their life type career, and we discussed that a lot of a lot of people assume, right, military, you're good at organising, you're going to go into operations, but both you and a chap called Sean Taylor have very much gone in at a much more general management level. And it's interesting, you've understood, you both mention a lot about people. Now that's, I suppose, to the lay person makes sense. Well, the army's full of people. But you're both over-indexed compared with a lot of leaders that I've met. Is that a true trait that you think you pick up from the training you get?
I think it definitely has a link to it. I think in the military, if you don't work as a team, then it doesn't go well. It's that simple, you know. It's a bit of an old cliche, you know, the weakest link in the chain type of thing. But
yeah.
You know, the military is you know, you're going into jobs or projects or exercises, if you like, you know, in regiments, in platoons and things, and you have to work as a unit. You have to, you know, there has to be that continuity in why you're there, what your strategy is, and what everyone's doing. And you also have to trust the process and trust each other within that process. It's really, really key. Yeah. The military also has this kind of collective mindset, which I think in a team and a leadership role is really important, because what it then distills is a kind of almost zero blame culture. Because if something goes wrong, it's a collective, right?
It inevitably does, doesn't it? In
and
work,
inevitably
more,
does.
everything.
Yeah. I guarantee you there's always something that will go wrong. And if you have this collective mindset, which is, look, it's gone wrong, right? But it's on us all. And we as a team have to understand why, where it went wrong, and then we have to fix it. You know, I've distilled this into my teams. I've continued to lead in this way, and I think definitely a lot of it stems from the military. But at the same time, also grown within the businesses I've worked in, and you know, it's a different environment. You know, it's a little bit more individualistic at times in certain businesses. Of course, it's natural, but actually, fundamentally, you know, if your people and your team are developing well, you develop well, the business develops well. It's that simple. There's no miracle around it. It's simply the fact that you have to look after each other. You have to look after what you're producing with care, and do what you say you're going to do. And if you do those things, you follow through, and you do so in a character that brings energy, brings motivation, often you'll find good retention within your leadership team, and that's what I have within my team. My leaders have been with me almost from the start, and they continue to grow the business, and I couldn't be more proud of that fact.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, two things stand out there for me. One is, like you say, that consistency of behaviour. That's what people want to know. Not that you become set in your ways, but they understand when will Rob and when will Tom be happy when these sorts of behaviours are happening. You get to understand a behaviour scale that you can then develop in. And I think the other one is, again, that you've mentioned a few times, but is if you can create an environment where everybody is always learning, then you don't become, obviously, let's talk about bread, stale in your role. Sorry. Always got to get a dad joke in. Yeah. But it is, isn't it? And like you've talked about going out and getting formal qualifications over at Harvard and things like that, and yeah, that's hard work, and that's hard work fitting it in around a very busy and demanding job. But I reckon you personally were going, no, this is me developing, so actually I'm going to give even more back into my role, and the business is going to get much more out of it.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what it is. It's adding tools to the greater good, and you know, and the pot of what we're trying to achieve as a group or as a business and as a team. And you know, I always say that, you know, I lead and I coach. If I'm managing somebody or a situation, something's probably gone wrong along the way. And I've had to step in. You know, I fundamentally lead and I coach my team to a point where they have the empowerment and the accountability to go and then do their job. You know, the last thing I want within my business or my teams is this micromanagement aspect, you know, and the only way that comes from is through me and through the culture of the business. And it's extremely important that culture is based around learning, empowerment, and developing the tools as a team that we need to achieve our goal. And it's something I'm very, very conscious of. It's something that I know I often have the motivation to get the momentum behind. So I'm constantly banging the drum for my team's development, as well as my own, and we're in a good place for it. Absolutely.
Excellent. Right, well, talking of development, I'm going to put you on the spot here because, like a good interviewer, I've done my research, and you have a new exciting chapter about to begin in 3 or 4 months. Are you happy to share your next move?
No, absolutely, I am. Yeah, it's a bit more common knowledge now, but yeah, absolutely, I am actually as incredible my journey with Bread Holdings has been. I also have an exciting opportunity to move on into a role that I'm excited about, where I'm becoming the managing director of Bells of Lazonby, which is an exciting business that is a family business from post World War II, so near 80 years, and it's always been known for its service levels and its quality of product. It's built an incredible site and structure around its manufacturing facilities and attributes. It has one of the UK's fastest growing free-from bakeries, which is doing some incredible development and innovation of product. It has some incredible clients as well, which they work very closely with over a lot of years, and they've built those relationships extremely strong, and it's a privilege to be able to continue that and to develop those relationships moving into the future. And I'm extremely proud and also honoured to have the opportunity to go and lead the business, and you know, most importantly, of what I do know about the business is its team is incredible. It's growing. It's a growing team, but it's one that just distills and embodies the values of the business. You only have to be around the team or the site for 5 minutes and you can see the embodiment of what they're doing there. So to be part of that and to stand shoulder to shoulder with them into the future is going to be an extremely exciting opportunity that I'm looking forward to taking on.
Interesting seeing your face light up, but I suppose listening to you and what we've discussed previously and what you've discussed today is like it's got a lot of the attributes and values of where you've enjoyed growing in terms of Bread Holdings, and so this is just like the next chapter, isn't it? I mean, I suppose it's a great lesson, isn't it? Although from the outside people may thought you landed on the perfect job with Gail's and with the bread factory, but there's also always personal development for us all, isn't it? And you have to look after yourself, but it sounds like when you leave your current employer, you've left in better shape than when you started, so there's a tick there.
Yeah,
and you've
absolutely.
been very honest to say you've got lots of learnings from that business that you can now take in your new wider role as a family business matures, which is always, you know, it comes with different challenges, Rob, doesn't it, that?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. They're two very different businesses in that fundamental sense. You know, one is invested in and growing, one is still family owned, but they both share very close values in terms of, you know, making sure that the service levels and the quality of the product and how they produce those products are very, very similar. And, you know, I've been extremely thankful for my position at Bread Holdings and the journey I've been on. You know, I am extremely fond of Tom, the owner, who hasn't just taught me a great deal, but he's also, I've enjoyed a great friendship with him, and it's detriment to his leadership style, you know, that he's honest and approachable, and he's somebody that encourages my personal growth as well. But at the same time, obviously, you know, opportunities do come up in life and you have to weigh those up. You have to calculate them and understand what you want for yourself as well and for your future growth. And as a leader and as a person, I think this is an incredible opportunity that I'm looking forward to. And it's a business that's growing, and it's growing, you know, extremely well over the last couple of years. And it's, as I've mentioned, got an incredible team, a product and facility, and if I can add my own experiences and my own leadership style to that, and continue to bring the business forwards. That's my aim, and it's obviously a slight change for my family as well. We're relocated, which we're happy about. I feel like we're just getting more and more north throughout the country.
I can say you'll be in Scotland before you know it.
No, I'll be up in the
Because is it Penrith where it's based?
So it's based in Penrith, just outside Penrith, in Lazonby, and it's an incredibly beautiful part of the world.
It's gorgeous, yeah.
The family are from that area. It started with the Bell family, coming back from World War II and setting up a bakery at the side of their home and delivering to local communities and neighbours. And from there, the manufacturing site is still in Lazonby now today. And like I mentioned, it's got 400 plus employees doing some incredible work. It's community based. It employs local. It gives back locally. Extremely passionate owners and family, and I'm extremely excited. It's I've got a really great feeling about the next chapter and what I can also give to the business. You have to understand is there something that I can add to this?
What difference can I make? Yeah.
Exactly, and I truly believe that I can add something, and I can add a difference, which will help it grow into the future. I'm a custodian of the business day to day, and I take great pride in that and looking forward to it.
I think that's interesting, isn't it? If you look back at your entire career, you've gained sort of what might have seemed disparate experience, but it's not. There's these themes that suddenly come through, and then when you get to this stage of your career, you start to, it's not even being selfish, but you start to be very focused on what will make you happy to drive you, but then that's for the good of the business, isn't it? Because if you're in there full of energy and full of that sort of verve, it's going to be infectious to that business and breathe the next level of growth. And then the family accepting that they need to evolve and change as the business grows.
I think it's less than accepting, more so that they understand that it's a fantastic business that's growing, and for various other reasons they're still very heavily involved and day to day, and still have the say on the direction of the business as much as I will as MD and the leadership team. But they understand that other people can also bring something to the table, and I'm going to be extremely excited about bringing that my own leadership skills and my own diverse experience within the industry as well, and the bakery world, as I've mentioned, I feel like it's just taking on the torch to the next chapter. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not going into change. It's simply going into to work alongside the incredible team that they have, and continue the incredible growth they've had. It's simple as that, and it's a business that fundamentally always returns back to the values, which is quality, family, and innovation, which it does extremely well, I have to say. So
how exciting! Right, we'll keep an eye on you. We'll have you back on in the year to find out about the first few months there.
Sounds great.
So it's sort of getting towards the end of the recording. It's always nice to do a little bit of reflection, and I don't know at which point, but we always like to ask our guests, like, when you're starting your career, is there a piece of advice now that you'd love to give to young Rob, whether it could have been, I suppose, when he first went into the army, or actually it could have been when he first came out of the army, and it's like, is there something you'd sort of wish you'd known and you could pass on to that younger self to help the journey?
Oh, it's a good question. Absolutely. Look, I think, apart from maybe playing golf for a living and being on the live tour right now.
I mean, what are you doing? You clown. I could be your caddy.
I know, exactly. But no, I think, look, going back to my younger self at that stage, I think, especially as a teenager, look, attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. It's definitely something that I would tell myself, and it's something that I learned the hard way in the military, especially in the early years. But it also distilled that discipline into me, which I still have today. But I think ultimately I would just tell myself the biggest lessons I've had throughout the years is build authentic relationships, be yourself, be curious and conscious and open, soak up as much as you can and continue to learn. And most importantly, be brave, and take risks occasionally, calculate them, but take them, and back yourself. It's we live in a very complex world. We live in a much more noisy world than we used to. So being authentic and backing yourself in what you do, and being true to yourself, and just being conscious of that is extremely key, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That especially when you start out your career, without being awful, there's not a lot you can add. You haven't got experience if it's in your world or my world. You're sort of like a raw material. But if you can bring an attitude that's hungry to learn, hungry to adapt, then that's all you can ask for, because most businesses then will give you all of the learning and all the experience you need. But you've kind of got to have a mindset that you're hungry to soak all that up.
Absolutely.
And it's very interesting interviewing graduates now who theoretically feel they've seen a lot more of the world, and they sort of have, compared with, well, certainly when I left school and uni, there wasn't, the internet was just sort of starting out. You were a bit past from me, Rob, but it's sort of like a curse and a blessing, that, because what they haven't got, and what, if I think I base my entire career on, are the relationships I built when I first started working. Still pay dividend now. People set up new businesses, move roles, and bring us in because we've been a trusted, not we've become friends, but trusted partner for so many years now. But that's all based on relationships, not on how many followers I've got on TikTok. And it's just this interesting thing that people do business people with even now, and
yeah, absolutely.
That attitude thing, that's really interesting. I agree. It's the sort of thing. It's like, if you go for a job interview, just look really keen. Make sure you've researched the business. Make sure you're hungry. You understand them, because that's all you can bring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's true. And look, at a young age, you have to apply yourself. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to be open. And it took me a while. I definitely wasn't like
I'm not
this,
saying it's easy, but if you can if we collectively, Rob, I've spoken about my two lads at uni, if they're listening, that's the advice. Go with hunger, go with energy, because that's all you're bringing at that stage.
Absolutely. Motivate yourself, have that growth mindset, be conscious, be open, soak it up like a sponge, and learn from people, the good and the bad. You have to have those learnings for sure, but continuous learning. And that's really important. And that took me a few years to grasp, because yes, it's effort, and often it's also on top of work or
the day job, so to speak.
The day job, so to speak. But in fact, what it gives you back in return is the kind of confidence that you can then go and implement your experiences as you learn them. But yeah, that would definitely attitude and kind of authentic relationships, and being yourself and being brave is definitely the things that I would tell my younger self, for sure.
Yeah, and you're telling your daughter as she grows up too. Yeah.
I will do. Yeah, I will do, for sure.
I've got only one final question, Rob, for the second, which is, when are we getting a Gail's in Yorkshire?
Oh, you know what? It's on the list. It's not going to be far away. We've now opened in Buxton recently, which is doing great.
I'm down there this weekend. There you go. I'll go and look it out.
There you go. Fantastic. So that's our newest in the north. But absolutely, Yorkshire. It's incredible places. You look around the whole of the UK, but Harrogate, York are fantastic places that are really good foodie hubs as well. There's some fantastic food and offerings around there. So it won't be long.
Okay, thank you. Just for my own well-being, like you say. Well, look, Rob, I've absolutely loved that. We obviously thank you for sharing a wonderful story, but also best of luck with your next chapter. I don't think there's much for me to worry about, looking at the energy and the excitement you have for it, like you say, but the total respect to obviously Gail's and the bread factory and everything you've learnt within that business too. And that's what we like you, to your point, you should always remember where you're from.
Absolutely.
Those people don't go away. They're around and about, and it's about having a bit of class in how you move from job to job, isn't it, as well?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be where I am today without all of those people, all of those businesses, and all those experiences that I've been through. There's far too many to count on one hand. You never get to anywhere in life on your own. There's always a team around you, and I'll take those learnings and friendships forwards for sure. And Bread Holdings especially Bread Holdings, has been so pinnacle to that growth. And I'm looking forward to the next chapter, but I'll also look back on this chapter fondly, for sure.
Fantastic. What a lovely note to end on. Right. Good luck, Rob. Take care.
Thank you very much. Take care, Steve. Thank you.